war in Ukraine continues, along with related Western sanctions and Moscow's countermeasures. Joining me now is the owner of Chunks Fish and Chip Shop in Hartlepool, Michael Ward Lewis, and President of the National Federation of Fish Fryers, Andrew Crook. Great to have you both with us. Can we see you, Michael, in the Chunks Fish and Chip Shop in Hartlepool? Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about these rising costs of your inputs, of fish, of cooking oil. Does that mean you're having to increase the costs, the prices that you charge the punters when they come in for their fish and chips?
That's right. Yeah, we've had to raise our prices a few times in the last 6 months. Fish prices, where we've seen at Fest, that started to raise drastically and went up by 35%. Obviously, we have to pass the rises on to the customers, and it's been met okay so far, but we have had some resistance, and we do know from a lot of the social media groups on Facebook that people aren't going to be willing to pay higher prices if we go much further.
Saywood is there with you. Are people asking you why their price is going up, or do they kind of get it? Are you getting a hard time? Because people who want their fish and chips, but they don't want to pay more money, do they?
No, they don't. And it's one thing I tried to warn everybody about 2 weeks before this last price rise that are regular customers, and explained to them any minute I had to kind of lessen the backlash. But it's still too much for them, and we've gone from cheapest chips to really expensive.
Very
it's a luxury
interesting
item as I look at it.
Well, stay with us. We'll come back to you, but I do want to bring in the President of the National Federation of Fish Fryers, Andrew Crook. Andrew, this isn't a joke, is it? I mean, for a lot of communities, their local fish and chip shop is a place to eat nutritious food that's relatively affordable, it's quick, it's nutritious. If chip shops are going out of business, that's not going to do anyone any good.
No, certainly not. I mean, we're a big part of the local community as well, and we employ local people who spend our money locally. Some of the young people that work in our industry take those skills with them for the rest of their lives. So we're part of the fabric of society, and we certainly don't want to lose it from the high streets. But this really is a serious threat, and a lot's beyond anyone's control. It's market forces and post-pandemic inflation. Then we've got the effects of the conflict just starting to hit us with the oil prices, and fish will come into that as well. But unfortunately, the government didn't take any steps to keep VAT low on hospitality, which is something that everybody's calling out for in hospitality. And I think they use fish and chips. The Prime Minister used fish and chips in one of his Build Back Better videos on social media, but they've not done anything to change it. So they're building back worse, and we really think it's time to revisit that.
It's worth saying, for quite a lot of the pandemic, hospitality outlets, food outlets, it was 5% VAT, then 12.5% VAT, kind of emergency rates. But now you're back on the full fat 20% VAT, just at the time when your input costs, the cooking oil, the fish, the spuds, are going up so much. What would you say to punters who are concerned that chippies are charging too much these days?
Just stick with us. We really don't want to put prices up. Nobody wants to put the prices up. We cringe every time. And if you see prices go up, you can believe that the shop really should have put it up by more. We're definitely absorbing these increases. It's not about profiteering. It's really about survival. And it's not something we relish doing, but we've got to do it to survive. And we just hope people continue to use us, because if you don't use us, you lose us. And as I said, we're such an important part of British life. We're second only to the Queen when people are asked what they think of Great Britain. And it'd be such a shame to lose this industry and lose the independence that plays such a big part in it.
Let's go from Lancashire there back to the northeast in Hartlepool to Chunks Fish and Chip Shop. Michael and Saywood Lewis, you've built this business. It's a much-loved fish and chip shop. I've got a lot of mates in the northeast. I've phoned up, I've checked you out. The fish and chips are fantastic. Is your business under threat?
Sadly, very much so. We've been crunching the numbers, and with that,
yeah, with the extra VAT that's been put back on now, things aren't looking good for us. So it's at the minute we're still just riding it out. If things change, then it would be great, but we can't see that in the near future, and it'd be a struggle for us, especially if prices are going to continue to rise and we're going to have to re-look at our prices and less custom. It's just eventually just becomes not manageable.
Obviously, a fish and chip shop uses lots of cooking oil. You deep fry specialist is what you do. How much has the cooking oil that you use so much of gone up in recent weeks, given that Ukraine and Russia produce so much of it?
80% increase.
And that's a big chunk of your ingredient cost, right? It's a lot more expensive than the spuds that you use.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's very expensive. And then with our fish prices being driven up as well from Americans, ironically, buying a lot of the Icelandic cod from the sanctions on Russia. It's just staggering. One of our local chippies that we're really good friends with just closed a few weeks ago, and they've been open for 25 years.
Wow. That's really, really something. Let's go back to you, Andrew Crook. What is your message to Boris Johnson? You're there in Lancashire. You are the president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers. This is not a flippant story. This is our national dish. Chip shops are often the beating heart of communities. Quite often, if I say with all respect, of lower income and more vulnerable communities, seaside towns. What's your message to the Prime Minister?
Well, we work with many government departments working with DEFRA at the moment with the current crisis and BAYS and through the pandemic. But the one department that seems to ignore us is the Treasury, and we just want to sit down with the Treasury and let's have a look at VAT, because the system, we have VAT on takeaway food for 38 years, nearly 50 years on everything else. And it's just time to have a look at it because the world's changed and we just need that support. The 17 European countries have got a lower rate of VAT for hospitality, and the rest of hospitality in this country is now asking for the same thing. So we think it's really important that we take a second look at this. I know we missed a spring statement, but with a chance to come back and just please, it's time to have a look at the VAT system. That's a lifeline for this industry and we really do need the support.
Well, Andrew Crook of the National Federation of Fish Fryers and indeed Saywood and Michael Lewis up there in Chunks Fish and Chip Shop in Hartlepool. Thank you so much for that discussion. Michael and Saywood, stay in touch with us here on The Money. We want to know what happened to your business.